Welcome to the Rising for Women podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Merlo-Booth, and I believe the world will be changed for women when we change how we walk in it. So each week, we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to explore new options. Some of them are going to be hard options, and we're going to have some real, straight talk. We're going to do that because I have faith that women can handle it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rising Podcast for Women with your hosts, Lisa Merlo-Booth, Dee Marcotte, and Arlene Newman. Today, we're going to talk about something that comes up quite a bit with our clients, with our female clients, and that has to do with fear of being alone. And fear of being alone, not only, like, it could be that you're in a relationship and you're afraid of being alone, so you don't want to leave the relationship. Or you're afraid of being alone, so you're getting yourself into any relationship just so you're not alone. So let's jump in. Mm-hmm. Dee and Arlene, what are you seeing? How common is this that you're seeing in your practices with women?
Extremely. I would say almost everybody that I can think of. That I see.
That's so, I would say almost all the women who are not happy in their relationship and thinking about leaving, almost all of them are afraid of being alone should they leave. So I see that. What about you, Dee?
So I think the same thing. It's kind of like trying to make something work that clearly is not working. Yeah. And but you know, the bottom line, it's like, well, then I'll be alone. And kind of that, like this, at least I have something.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of, at least I have something, rather than what is that something and how am I being treated in that something? It's just, it's something.
Oh, yeah. That's so true. I've had clients and they'll literally say, you know, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Not true, by the way. Well, what I should say is, how about we just stay the hell away from devils? How about we do that? Let's do that.
And we have to deal with this fear, which is it's very powerful for women.
Yeah. Which, you know, let's put that into perspective, because so many women have it, right? And just on an evolutionary standpoint, right? We are, men and women, I mean, but women in particular, we are made to be, we're made for connection. We're made to want to be with people, men too, right? The human condition is you're made to connect and you're made to be around others. We're social creatures. So that idea about being alone, it does go against our nature in many ways. And it has been a survival instinct. I was reading something and I thought, oh, that's so interesting how, you know, years and years and years ago, this survival instinct would keep them as part of the clan. You know, you're like, exactly. If they started to go away from the group, it would, this fear would bring them back so that they wouldn't be alone should, you know, some animal trap them or whatever. They would have somebody to help them. So it's very evolutionary. It's very normal. And it can be very damaging.
Paralyzing in your current life.
Yeah.
And I think
drives your decisions. No, if it drives your decisions, if you can't see through it and you're just acting out of fear, it can keep you from really seeing what's going on for you, your relationship, and how you're being affected.
Well, let's jump in there. That's a great entry into what are the harmful behaviors? What are the behaviors women do when they're driven by this fear? And I do want to just note something, that this fear, there are many layers to it. It could be like, oh, I don't like being alone in general, but I'm okay, I can do it. I just, sometimes I wish somebody was with me, to all the way to autophobia, which is a phobia of being alone, which literally you can't be alone. You always have to be around others. And so just to put that in perspective, there's a continuum there. But women who are struggling with being alone or afraid of being alone, let's look at what are some of the things that you see them do that hurts them. What are the things that they're doing that's harmful because of this fear?
Well, I think I see, like, there can be people who are already in relationship is one piece.
Yeah.
And it's about really letting, being upset about a lot of maybe behaviors, about how they're being treated, but they let them go because they're afraid of being alone. Or the idea of, well, I can't set a boundary, they'll get mad.
Yeah.
The unspoken part being they might leave.
Yes.
So I can't do that. I think for women who aren't in a relationship yet, it can be really going, well, they're kind of okay, and a warm body is better than no body. And so they don't really look at what do I really want? Who am I? Like, they start playing a role in relationship, and then they're in that role, and then it's kind of like, well, at some point you're going to get tired of that role. But it's not like the true you is being in relationship.
Right.
Mhm.
I was thinking that it affects some women in their self-esteem. If they are not in a relationship or they're alone, they start to feel like there's something wrong with them because they're not in a relationship. They get depressed.
Mm-hmm.
It defines who they are in their own minds. They feel.
Yeah, and that goes back to, I mean, for forever, there's that word spinster.
Yes.
Right? You don't want to be a spinster, right? And if you're alone, you're unlovable and something's wrong with you, and you're going to be like that for the rest of your life, and there's no woman can be fulfilled if she didn't have a relationship or somebody, with her.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you quoted us this thing that you were reading, right? That the happiest people are women that are alone with no kids.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier, and I was reading a statistic, and the statistic said that statistically speaking, the happiest group are unmarried, childless women. And the happiest group, I mean, when it comes to marriage, men who are married are happier than women who are married. Which, there's 1,000 reasons for that, right? Which is our next podcast. But yeah. And so it's very interesting. Women have this fear of being alone, yet they find it's showing that many women who are living alone are happier. Fascinating.
It is really fascinating. It's also the other thing I think that's interesting, like you both were talking about, like the spinster piece, or you can't grow old alone. Like, that's like, talk about the movie version of life,
Yeah.
There's that whole piece about what I'm supposed to look like to others, which I think is part of that culturally based piece about, like, you were talking about, oh, you can't be fulfilled if you're alone, and like there's something wrong with you if you're alone.
Well, and I love what you just said, Dee, because when you say, what we look like to others, so much of women is about, we judge ourselves based on how others see us. Like, I want them to see me as nice. I want them to agree with me. I don't want them to see me as a bitch. I don't want them to see me as, cold or, a spinster or whatever. And so we so lose ourselves and what we want and what brings us joy because we're looking through ourselves through the mirror of others. And
that also part of what we're talking about, that you're afraid of not being accepted and being ostracized and then being alone again.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So when this is happening, we're staying in bad relationships. We're settling for anybody. We're like, we don't care. I just need a body in this bed. It doesn't really matter how they treat me. We're constantly trying to surround ourselves with people and be doing things. The other thing I see women do who are alone, they don't like going to the movie by themselves. They don't like going out to dinner by themselves not because they don't enjoy the experience, but because they're so worried at how others are judging them to be alone sitting at a restaurant.
Exactly.
I'm not sure they even know what their experience is, because those fears is really their projection. So they don't think that it looks acceptable, that they are adequate to having dinner alone.
Yes.
It doesn't even occur to them to think about, well, what is the actual experience of doing that?
Yeah.
They don't get there.
Right.
So this fear is huge. It underlies so many things, so many behaviors that undercut women's self-esteem and ability to be fully alive in their own bodies.
Yeah, and that's the cost. That's the cost. The cost is, like you said, you start to lose your sense of self. You don't feel good about yourself. Your confidence, you start to lose that. You start to make decisions that are not good for you and that keep you in unhealthy relationships, unhealthy situations. And you're living your life for others, not yourself. And you're living your life in fear. You're letting fear be the driving force for your life. And I think all of us can think of many situations where we let fear dictate our choices, and that didn't play out well.
Plus, I think the devices and some of that stuff of today, like that constantness of like, oh, well, I can text a friend, or I can text the person I'm with, or I can, like, oh, they didn't text me back. Oh my God. And then, so there's this sense of every second, I need to know that you're there, that I'm not alone. And I think that's gotten heightened with all of the texting and phones and this and that and the other thing.
I agree. We've kind of lost that, the gift of being alone. We've lost the gift of just like enjoying a moment, Okay, so what do we do? What are, somebody doesn't like being alone. She just doesn't like it. You're not going to sell it to her. What's the work? How do they start to manage this fear and stop allowing the fear to drive their choices?
First, as always, become aware that that's what's driving it, that it's really a fear, that it's not just, oh yeah, I like, I prefer it, I like that. There is a deep, deep fear that drives your decisions. That would be the first thing.
Yeah. And when you're realizing that it's a fear, why? What's behind that fear? Is it, I'm afraid of what other people will think? Is it, I'm afraid that I'll have nobody to help me? Should I have cancer, or should I get something bad? Is it that I'm unlovable? So what is the fear? What's driving it? And what choices are you making because of that fear that's harming you? So consciousness. Go ahead, Dee.
Right. Well, I was going to say, in one of the articles I was reading, one of her tenets was, part of what we have to do is start creating a better emotional intimacy with ourselves.
Yeah.
Like women are into this, oh, they're not intimate. And it's like, well, like, I know you think you are, but you have to be intimate with yourself. And that a lot of the time, this fear of aloneness is also because we're not sinking into our emotional or cognitive or visceral sensation experience. Like, even if you can do it just for a minute, like I tell people, set the timer on your phone for a minute. And no, you don't know, you're not going to think about the kids. You're not, no. What's happening for me? What does my body feel like? What is that like? So start only a minute at a time.
Right. Right. I would, and then, so that's like the internal piece. Also start to practice being like doing things by yourself. Do, like for 15 minutes a day, every day for a week, you're going to just like color or you're going to just sit down. You're going to think, what is it? What are the 10 best things I like to do? Like, or the other thing is, if you're in a relationship that is really bad for you, and you've tried everything, but it's not changing, but the thing that's keeping you is you're just too afraid to be alone. Start being alone. Go take yourself out to dinner by yourself. Go to the library by yourself. Just now that you're in this relationship, you're unhappy, start building the muscles to be alone and enjoy it. See if you can start cultivating that.
And I think along with that, notice when you already do things alone.
Yeah.
You probably go to the grocery store. You drive to work. There's a whole bunch of things you do alone.
Yeah.
And so begin to recognize those and pay attention to what it's like in those moments.
Yeah.
Also, I'm thinking that when women are afraid of leaving an intimate relationship out of fear of being alone, that they are not necessarily in touch with the resources in their lives that they have, that they start to feel like everything is in that relationship, and to really become mindful how many other resources exist in your life and how they can be cultivated to support you. It's not, if you leave a relationship, it doesn't mean you're going to be totally alone in the world. Right. It just means you're not going to be with a warm body next to you, and you'll have to figure out your life on your own.
Yeah. I love that. I love that idea. Like, just reminding yourself, very few people are really alone, right? Like, alone means you have nobody. You don't have a friend, you don't have family members, you don't have acquaintances. So watch when you're saying alone. So I may not have a romantic partner, right? But there are so many other ways to pull people in. And Arlene, I love what you were just saying, start pulling those resources. And if you don't have them, start cultivating them. Do a book group, start. And the other piece that I know for women where they get stuck, part of their fear about being alone is also financial. And Absolutely. So you want to start tackling that financial piece now. What do you need to do in order to get yourself better situated financially so that you could take care of yourself, right? And so start thinking about that. Start putting a little money away, open up an account, do a side job. If you're a stay-at-home mom, make sure that you also have access to the bank accounts, right? You're not somebody that he's hiring to take care of your children. You both own that. You own that money, right? And you're both working together to get that money. Just because he's in a job and or she's in a job getting paid doesn't mean that you're also not in this. You have a job that's helping you both as a family create a lifestyle that you can live. So start thinking financially. If that's your fear, then you need to problem solve around that fear. So figure out what it is you're afraid of, start really looking at it, and then start thinking, what can I do now to start minimizing that fear and tackling it, right?
I think that's a really important point, because I have had several women who have gotten divorced and who were really in trouble financially, that the court system is not really fair to women very often. And they do end up being in dire straits. And that's very real. So I think being aware of that, attending to it, not just leaving it up to the partner is crucial.
Yeah.
Dealing with that fear.
Right. There are investment courses that just empower yourself. And this fear, you know, one of the things, you can turn fear into a gift, which is fear is there to protect us, or you can turn it into a straitjacket. We want to turn it into a gift. So look at that fear, figure out, what do I need to do to start? What's it about? What are the steps I need to take? And then start breaking those down. Because if you're going to stay in an unhappy marriage, or you're going to sleep with 1,000 people to not be alone, at least while you're doing that, build up so that, you know, I'm going to find the courage to be able to live my life without having fear be the driver. And so
talk to other people. Don't be alone. Don't be ashamed that you're afraid.
Yeah.
Practically all women have this fear. It may be hidden under many layers, but it's there. Don't be ashamed to talk to other women about it, so that you know that you are and have good company, and that they will support you and can help you move through it. So you're not alone and paralyzed by it.
All right. Love it. Challenge. If we were going to break down, I think we kind of just said it, but let's just wrap it up. What's the quick challenge? The first part is the same that we always say.
Be aware.
Be aware.
Be aware of your fear. Be aware of how it shows up in your life.
Yeah.
and look at the cost.
Yeah.
And do just one small thing.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the whole thing, like you're like, oh my God, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so like, what's one little step?
Love it.
One thing that you are afraid to do.
Right.
Yeah.
See if you can push yourself to do one little thing and see how it feels. See what happens to you.
And when you do that thing, man, cheer yourself on. I don't care how small it is. I don't care if it was the 1 minute Dee was talking about. You do that 1 minute and you sat with yourself for 1 minute. Woohoo! Hot damn. You just kicked ass. So you got to cheer yourself on. We beat ourselves up enough. No beating ourselves up. All right. So good luck, women. If fear is an issue, break it down. Talk to friends, one step at a time. You've got this. You totally have the ability to be able to tackle this inch by inch, make it happen. If you like this podcast, share it. If you have questions, ask them. We're happy to answer anything you want. And if there's something you want us to talk about, make a suggestion. All right. Take care. This is the Rising Podcast for Women. Thank you again for joining us this week. And always remember, you have the power to change the world for women by changing how you walk in it. I challenge you to choose one way to stand in your grounded, powerful strength this week and be part of the ripple of change.